everybody. It's Dr. Chris back with our 12 Minutes to Health. Thank you for joining me. As always, I appreciate when you guys come in, watch our 12 Minutes to Health and learn just more about the research on how to eat better, how to move more, and how to think better. And not just how to do that, but what that does for your health and combining all three of those. So thank you, as always, for joining us. I want to remind you that we do these talks every Tuesday night. We go over research in the clinics so that you can be there with the doctors. We do this every Tuesday night at 6. I encourage you to get into the office. There's so much research that we have in the office that we're trying to get into the hands of patients. Much more than we can cover 12 minutes at a time on these talks. So get in there. We have a bunch of refreshments, healthy snacks, green drinks, and most importantly, you get to sit there with the doctors and get your questions answered, because it's our commitment to you guys to help in the education process, to let you know exactly what the real peer-reviewed randomized controlled trial research is saying in the medical journals right now about how to live a healthier lifestyle, so that you don't just get our opinions on how to be healthy, but you get that unbiased, evidence-based approach to eating well, moving well, and thinking well. And that's what we try to bring to you each time. So let's go ahead and take a look at the research. We're looking at vitamin D. And I know I talk a lot about vitamin D, and I will continue because it is hugely important. The study we're going to look at tonight was by Cannell et al., and it looks at the epidemic influenza and how vitamin D affects that. And vitamin D has a substantial effect on our immune system and really regulating our immune system so that it doesn't get too far out of control, but yet it does enough to do its job and protect us. It's a fine line, that regulation process. And vitamin D, as always, I tell you guys, this isn't a standalone type thing. Health is inclusive of everything: how we're eating, how we're moving, our stress levels, all that stuff that we always talk about. Well, vitamin D itself actually works a lot better with vitamin A, which we'll talk about as we get into the research, because they point out why it is so important that they are used together in the right amounts and how to find that in a natural substance so that our body gets enough of it. So let's dig into this research. First, let's look at how vitamin D is made, okay? Most humans get most of their vitamin D from casual sun exposure, right? So the sun hits our skin, and what happens is there's a chemical process that takes place. We have cholesterol in our blood. Well, that cholesterol in our skin, when the sun hits it, actually starts to transform in a chemical reaction that takes place and create vitamin D. That vitamin D then goes to our liver. There's another chemical process that takes place in the liver so that vitamin D can be turned into 25-hydroxyvitamin D, right? And this is what is measured in our blood when we look at a blood test and see our vitamin D levels. So it's that form after it leaves the liver that we measure to see our vitamin D levels and the effects on our health. But what happens to that form is it actually gets to our cells, and it goes to all of our different cells where another chemical reaction takes place to change it to 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D. Okay, so that is the usable form by our cells. So there's a couple of different processes that allow that all to take place. And like I said, that's where we typically get our vitamin D from, is this process of sunlight hitting our skin. The problem is we're not getting enough anymore. This article goes to show, it actually says that vitamin D deficiencies are endemic across the world because we spend more time inside, right? It's the UVB rays used from the sunlight. So when that comes through glass or plastic or sunscreen, we don't get the same chemical reaction because the UVB rays don't get fully through and cause the reaction to take place. So you combine that with not getting outside as much as we used to, not living outside, and then the clothes that we wear, right? We're just covering ourselves up a lot more. We don't get near the vitamin D that we used to, and we don't get near the vitamin D that we require for our immune system to function correctly, as this study goes on to show. So one of the things that it talks about vitamin D's it has 3 very important roles, and it has about 1 million roles, right? But the 3 really important ones that this focused on was the cytokine and macrophage modulation. So basically what that means, and everyone's pretty familiar right now with cytokines. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic and everything, we hear about the cytokine storm. But really understanding what that is where the difference comes in. So when we understand that cytokines are there to protect us. They attack, it's inflammation to attack viruses and bacteria and things like that. So what's happening is that's getting out of control because we don't have enough vitamin D in our systems. Vitamin D is what regulates this process to say, hey, we need some inflammation, but not too much. Bring in the macrophages. Let's give them the oxidative burst that they need so that they can go out and they can swallow these viruses, swallow up these bacteria, and get them out of our system and protect ourselves. So without vitamin D, we don't have enough macrophage activity taking place, and we usually have too much cytokine activity taking place, which is causing a bunch of respiratory issues. So this article does a great job of showing how that if we're not at the right levels, if we're not somewhere around 50 nanograms per deciliter of vitamin D in our blood, 40 to 50 is a good range in there, then we're going to run into increased inflammation from cytokines and decreased macrophage function. So that is a hugely important role of vitamin D. One of the most important roles is AMPs, which are antimicrobial peptides. These are molecules that are a part of our immune system that go out and they eliminate bacteria and viruses and things like that. And we're genetically predisposed to send these things out so that we can fight off foreign invaders. And what the study said was, perhaps most importantly, 3 independent research groups have shown that vitamin D dramatically stimulates genetic expression of antimicrobial peptides in human monocytes, neutrophils, and other human cell lines. So basically, vitamin D in the correct levels is actually stimulating our genes, right? We have genes for AMPs, these antimicrobial peptides. It's just they're not always kicking on and doing as much as they could because they lack that burst that is provided by vitamin D being at sufficient levels to stimulate the genetic expression of these antimicrobial peptides. So without these antimicrobial peptides, we are really open to any foreign invaders. These are essential in us maintaining our health and our immune function. So vitamin D is very, very important when we look at the antimicrobial peptides, the cytokines, and the macrophages that we talked about earlier. So very, very important that we get those levels of vitamin D up over that 40 nanogram to 50 nanograms per deciliter. How we go about doing that is through cod liver oil. Cod liver oil is our best source of vitamin A and vitamin D together. And the reason that that's important is because vitamin A and vitamin D share a receptor site on our cells. It's the RXR receptor site. And what that means is that if we have A and D in the right levels, they're actually working symbiotically. They work together to help our immune system. So vitamin D is actually 300% more effective when we have the right amounts of vitamin A going along with it. And the right amounts that occur in nature are found in cod liver oil. It's the best source for vitamin A and vitamin D to remain balanced. And the study goes on to show that if you have too much A or you have too much D or not enough of either one, whatever it is, you're going to have a functional inability, a functional decrease of the other vitamin to do its job. So it's absolutely crucial that we have these in the right balance. So cod liver oil, I mean, if you ever grew up, listening to your grandma, I know my grandma used cod liver oil for everything. It was, we would drink it, we would put it on stuff, it was always there. And it was a great remedy. It actually was helping us stay healthier. She understood that from, just her growing up and her parents and everything else, but she was passing it on, not based on research, but based on practical use at that time. Well, the research is now clear that vitamin A and vitamin D in cod liver oil is great for us. And that's why we use the Innate Choice Omega A and D in our clinics. Because, and I'll talk about it in another talk, but the omega-3s, when we look at the macrophages and cytokines and keeping the cell walls that fluid like they need to be so that they can attack things, that's another huge part of our immune system. So when we can put all these things together to help our immune cells, I mean, there is no better supplement on the planet than the Innate Choice Omega A and D sufficiency that gives us our fish oil and our cod liver oil in the correct amounts so that we can maintain health and just stay healthy. When we look at the dosage, I talked about this earlier. In this study, what they found was that 4,000 IUs a day for more than 6 months to middle-aged Canadian outpatients resulted in levels at 44 nanograms per milliliter and produced no side effects other than an improved mood. You will have positive side effects from vitamin D because it's used in every function in our body. But this goes on to show the 4,000 IUs. The rest of the study shows, though, there are some variants in there. The darker your skin, the less vitamin D you're actually going to create from the sun. So you may have to up it. If you are overweight or obese, you're going to have to up it. The higher your fat content is. And then there was, the older we are, they looked at elderly patients, 65-year-olds actually created about 25% of what a 20-year-old would off of sunlight. So we just lose the ability to create our own vitamin D. So we need to up it. And I suggest to all my patients to keep it between 4,000 and 5,000 IUs. But one of the most recent studies that came out in August looking at COVID-19, it saw that the higher your vitamin D levels, the less susceptible you were to symptoms, to ending up in the ICU, and to death. So vitamin D is actually hugely important, and it's all over the place right now, right? Like, take your vitamin D, 5,000 IUs. What I would suggest right now is that if you're deficient in vitamin D, I would even take that up to 10,000 IUs, just due to the research and what it's saying over those first 2 to 3 months, that 90 days is when we see human physiology really kick in. It takes about 90 days for our body to build up on a substance like that, and then back it back down to the 5,000 to maintain, and you're going to be a lot healthier for it, especially if you're using vitamin A. And if you don't have vitamin A with your vitamin D, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You're not going to hurt yourself by just taking the vitamin D, and it will have a benefit, but why would we not take vitamin A with it and omega-3s so that we get 3 times the benefit from the vitamin D that we are taking? I mean, it's a no-brainer when you look at it. So very important for absolutely everybody right now, with the flu season or COVID season or whatever you want to look at. But the truth is, there are always viruses and bacteria out there, and we need to be boosting and maintaining our levels of vitamin D, omega-3s, and vitamin A constantly so that we can be as healthy as possible, along with exercise, positive thought, stress reduction, all the stuff that we talk about with you guys. So I know there are more questions. There's a ton of information in this article that's just impossible to cover in 12 minutes. So first off, get into the office Tuesday nights. We love having you guys in there. You can grab more research, talk to the doctors, and enjoy the refreshments. But also, I know that a lot of people's health is not where they want it right now. I know there's people out there with aches and pains, and I know you're either one of these people or you know one of these people. So let them know about us, guys. We're doing, our special offer, a $39 donation to our local monthly charity, get you any x-rays we need, an exam, consultation. We use our proprietary health software to get you a personalized health score from 0 to 100 so that we can help you get the answers that you need and the truth that you need. And that's why we've taken it down to $39, which is a donation. We just don't want any more excuses. So we've removed the barriers. Now it's up to you. Let's get you into the clinic today. Give us a call. We'll get you set up with an appointment. And I'll see you next time for our 12 Minutes to Health. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.